Welcome to Your Legislators, a production of KRWG Broadcasting. Your Legislators is a public service program providing our viewing and listening audiences in southern New Mexico the opportunity to hear about important legislative issues directly from their elected representatives in Santa Fe. Now here is your host, Carlos Correa.
Welcome to Your Legislators on KRWG, also being broadcast on the radio at KRWG 90.7 FM Las Cruces. I'm Carlos Correa with this week's guest, Representative Terry McMillan from New Mexico's 37th District. Representative McMillan, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you, Carlos. Thank you for having me.
Now, before we get into some of the issues this legislative session, I want to start with you, Representative. Tell us what it's been like these past few weeks in your new role.
Well, Carlos, I must tell you, and to be perfectly frank, I spent the first 2 weeks a little bit bewildered. As you may be aware, I've never done this at any level, local politics or much less at the state level, and so this is all new to me. I think one of the advantages I have is being fairly quick in the uptake. So I've landed on my feet, and I have a good idea what's going on now. But the first 2 weeks were a steep learning curve.
Now, for those who don't know, you're a surgeon, correct?
I am an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. That's correct.
What got you interested in politics and following this career path?
Well, I'm not sure this is a career path. I wouldn't call it that. I have a career path, and I've had that for about 30 years. I haven't much considered doing anything else except being a surgeon since I was about 16. And I'm very pleased with that choice and with that avocation. I certainly have been involved with politics and interested in politics all my life. I feel strongly about certain issues, and I arrived at a point that I felt that I could make contribution and contribute to the discussion. So we decided to become involved.
Well, one discussion you guys are probably having up there in Santa Fe most of the time is about the state budget. It's a popular topic among many people, especially up there in Santa Fe. What are your thoughts on controlling the state budget?
Well, the problem, obviously, that we're confronted with is a shortfall in the monies that we have to pay for the programs that we're trying to provide. And we certainly hope that this will not be a long-term problem. The economy plays into it, but we have no choice except to find those places where we can make judicious cuts in our budget to meet the needs while at the same time avoid raising taxes. Any increase in taxes at in this particular economy would have a dreadful effect. So I will oppose any tax increases, and we'll try to be judicious in any cuts. But that's what we're going to have to do.
Are there any items with the governor's proposed budget or the finance committee's proposed budget that stand out to you?
That stand out? No, I would say that nothing stands out. I would point to the very close agreement between the two budgets, and the very close agreement, in fact, in terms of where to make some cuts to try to balance the budget. I'm pleased with that part of it. Recommendations from both sources seem to be pretty close, and so that should make it, in my mind, fairly uncontroversial.
Now, since taking office in January, Governor Martinez has made a lot of bold changes. Among them is proposing to sell the state jet as well as reduce the amount of pay for her top staff. What do you think about this as far as helping solve the financial crunch?
Well, I think that the amount of monies that she saves by taking those actions is not that great, but I think it's also very important that she has made a clear break with her predecessor in this regard. Whatever that she would serve up to the citizens of New Mexico, she and her staff will also partake in that fare. And I think that that's a very big morale booster, and it helps those of us who know that these cuts need to be made to get in behind her, and it's motivational. I think that's the main impact of those positions that she's taken.
Now, Representative McMillan, some say lawmakers should get on with passing a budget and a few other bills and then adjourning early so it could save taxpayers dollars. Among the people supporting this idea is the governor. Do you think the pace of the discussion, the pace the discussion is going, is appropriate?
The pace of discussions has been slow to this point, and I think principally that plays to a couple of facts. I would point out to you, as you may recall, in her State of the State address at the beginning of the legislature, that the new governor made it clear that she would sign no bills whatsoever that would include any type of tax increase. Or anything that might be considered a tax increase. And the fact is that, in my opinion, cut back the amount of legislation that's been submitted to this point. That's something that couldn't have been anticipated, but it has had a dampening effect on the number of potential solutions to our budget problems that might have been submitted. So it has been fairly slow to this point. Things will heat up, and there are several important issues, as you may know, that will need to be discussed. So we're not wasting our time.
So taking your time on the budget is a good thing.
Of course it's a good thing, and we'll take our time, and we would try, Carlos, to use a scalpel to make these cuts and be as precise as we can be, and not be clumsy and not make across-the-board cuts. So taking our time is important.
Representative McMillan, what needs to happen for the state of New Mexico to start seeing job growth?
The first thing that's in our control, and the thing that I would point to principally, Carlos, is this. I think that New Mexico is overregulated, and I think that those who have interest, legitimate interest in protecting our environment, have overreached. Workers in the workplace also need protection, but I think many of the regulations that are in place currently are an overreach, and they have really made New Mexico unfriendly to business. If we want to create jobs, which is the main thing my constituents talk about to me when I was running, if we want to create jobs, we need to cut the restrictions, regulations, and red tape and put New Mexicans back to work.
I can imagine there's a lot of people who may be contacting you via phone or email who had just lost a job and looking for work. What would you say to that individual to give them hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, first of all, we have been through these types of periods in our history before. I'm old enough to remember them. My father grew up through a Great Depression, and we hope that this never gets like that. But I can tell you that our country bounced back from that bad time. And I remember a time in the mid-'70s during the Carter administration when our economy was terrible. Tax rates were high, interest rates were high. Americans had lost a fair amount of their confidence, but we came out of that and entered subsequently the most productive period of our history. And I expect we'll do that again.
Now,
there are decisions that need to be made about the size and how much we spend on government. And a balance needs to be struck between protecting our environment and our workers and promoting business, and we can do that, and I think we will.
Spaceport America is going through a lot of changes, as you're aware of. Last month, the governor removed the entire Spaceport board and recently appointed 7 individuals. 2 of those members are from the old board. Representative McMillan, what is your stance on the project? And once it's up and running, will it bring a lot of jobs to New Mexico?
I am in support of the spaceport, and I think it will bring a lot of very highly technical and good-paying jobs to southern New Mexico. I hope that the new constituents of the board will move quickly to continue its mission and get those first people up into space and back again. I think that there will be a real competition for footprint on the spaceport of those companies who want to do work in space. I think it's a very huge opportunity for New Mexico, and especially for southern New Mexico, where we're from.
And it should be an exciting time. At any time, did you think that the project has become a burden at all to the state?
I do not. And I would distinguish between it and the rail runner in my mind. I think Spaceport still holds the possibility of being a huge opportunity builder and technology builder for our state, whereas the rail runner has not proven to be so, and I think is going to be a financial drain indefinitely. So I distinguish between those projects, and I still am confident that the Spaceport is going to pan out, if you would.
Do you think that private funding would help move it forward?
I think that we've already funded it publicly, and I think that I would pressure our private partners to bring this onto line and make it a reality. I think the taxpayers in the counties of the area have invested, and I think that they've invested enough.
Now, shifting gears towards education, Governor Martinez has wanted improving education around the state as her top priority. What are your thoughts on improving education?
Well, Carlos, I'm aware that the governor has a plan to overhaul our our public educational system along similar lines to what was implemented in Florida about 11 or 12 years ago. I have reviewed that plan carefully, and I agree with it. In fact, I have co-sponsored a bill along with Representative Nora Espinosa from over on the east side of the state that would have put an end to social promotion at the level of the third grade. This is one of the basic building blocks of the Florida school reform that has proven to be so successful. And we anticipate implementing these building blocks sequentially, and I think that we'll get good results.
How important is it for lawmakers to support education around the state?
Well, Carlos, that's, it depends on what you mean by support education. Education as it's been, or do you mean education in some reformed fashion? There is no direct correlation between how much we spend on education and what we're getting back. And I really don't want to spend time discussing that correlation. We need to decide what our public education is about. Is it about preparing our young people to compete in a global market for the good jobs? Or is our educational system about jobs with benefits for those who work in that system? We need to decide which it is. If we're going to invest in our children's futures, then I think we need to make some changes.
Now, shifting gears again, something you wrote in your blog that some people may support, some people may disagree with. In fact, there was a group recently made up of people from southern New Mexico and from our neighbors in El Paso who organized a rally and protested against some immigration issues. In fact, the group planned on heading to Santa Fe to let their voices be heard. One topic is giving authorities the green light to ask undocumented individuals who may be in police custody their immigration status. What are your thoughts?
I think that if someone is arrested, Carlos, for possibly committing a crime, of course I'm in favor of asking about their immigration status. Yes, I have no problem with that. I am not prepared yet to recommend that any of our law enforcement personnel be involved in asking in any other circumstance. But in the situation where a crime has been perpetrated, I think it's very appropriate to ask about immigration status.
Representative McMillan, let me take a moment to remind our listeners on KRWG 90.7 FM Las Cruces. You're listening to Your Legislators. I'm Carlos Correa with this week's guest, Representative Terry McMillan from New Mexico's 37th District. We're still talking about immigration issues. Representative McMillan, do you think that New Mexico is turning much like our neighbors in Arizona?
No, I don't think that. We have our own identity and we have our own culture. We have problems with illegal immigration and we need to deal with them. And I do not suggest that we need to follow the path that Arizona followed. I do, however, and I do have many constituents who have voiced their concerns about the ongoing practice of issuing New Mexico driver's licenses to those who are here illegally. This is a practice that most of my constituents clearly want to stop. And I'm on board with that. We are going to see legislation very soon that we'll be debating about whether or not to continue that practice. And a bill has been submitted, as I understand it, by Representative Nunez that would require a Social Security number when requesting a driver's license, and I'll support that.
What do you think about, as you were mentioning earlier, about revoking driver's licenses from illegal individuals? What's the argument? Someone may say, someone who may be undocumented coming to the state to find work, to support their families, and now there's a plan to maybe revoke those driver's licenses. What are your thoughts?
This is, Carlos, obviously one of the most complex issues that we face. And we are in such a difficult pass because of a policy that we followed for 30 or 40 years now, not to enforce our own laws. If we need to change laws, then let's undertake to change those laws. But the only way that you can get into the kind of difficulty and the mess that we're in currently is to have laws that are not enforced. We are understanding, and we need these workers. Our economy needs these workers. The workers need the work. By all means, let's fashion a program that allows them to come legally, allows them to drive on our roads, and makes it a win-win for all of us. But let's put an end to the confusion. Let's not issue American driver's licenses to those who are here for other reasons. It's a complex problem and it'll require complex solutions, but I'd like to stop giving driver's licenses to them.
Do you think that because of the recent law passed in Arizona, a lot of people who may have been undocumented are coming to New Mexico?
I would only be speculating to say, Carlos, about that. I don't know. It certainly it makes some sense. And I must say this, I am uncomfortable with this aspect of Arizona's law. And I've talked with many of my friends about this. I would not give our police officers permission to ask at random about immigration status. And the reason I do this is because I imagine myself, I have many Hispanic friends, and I imagine myself at one point coming home from a ball game with one of my friends, and let's imagine that I'm driving the car and I'm pulled over by the officer for speeding. And he begins the process of issuing me a ticket, but then asks my Hispanic friend for his identification or asks about his immigration status. I'm not comfortable with that. If we were ever to implement that sweeping a policy, that I would have to insist that everyone be asked. And I don't mind being asked.
Immigration will continue to be an ongoing discussion. Representative McMillan, another thing you support is people having valid photo identification present when they visit polls on election days. Why do you think this is important, and why do you think it took so long for this topic to reach the legislature?
The reason it's important, Carlos, is because many New Mexicans, and I must tell you that most of my constituents in the process of campaigning and knocking doors, most of my constituents feel strongly that we need to have confidence in the results of our elections. It's only been 8 or 9, 10 years ago in which we had a huge controversy about the outcome of our presidential election. That's an emergency. We must have confidence in our elections and the results of those elections. Photographic voter identification would simply restore a measure of confidence to the validity of the process. And so I favor it strongly, and most New Mexican voters do.
Do you think it'll turn away a lot of folks who may not have proper photo IDs?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question, Carlos.
Do you think that this bill would kind of push people who may not have proper identification to go to the polls on Election Day?
I would think that people without appropriate photographic voter identification or any type of photographic identification would be hesitant to go to the polls under those circumstances, yes, and be able to show that they're registered to vote.
All right, Representative McMillan, let's talk about some of the bills that you support and that you have introduced so far. House Bill 265, the military retirement income tax exemption. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'll be pleased to, and thanks for asking, Carlos. This is a bill that is actually an economic development bill for the state. Retired military personnel are significantly more wealthy than the average New Mexican. These men and women are of about middle age. At the end of their military careers, earn about $80,000, whereas the average New Mexican earns about $50,000. And there is competition to attract these retirees to different states. If we could exempt their retirement pay from state income taxes, I think we'd see a large number of retirees moving to our state. And the advantages of that are that these people are highly skilled. They typically start businesses. They bring families with them that work and generate tax revenues and spend money. The boon to our state would be quite large. After 3 or 4 years of marketing our state along those lines, this is an excellent economic builder for our state.
There's also a proposal in regards to a Las Cruces building donation. Can you talk about that bill?
That's a bill that is also sponsored by Senator Papin on the Senate side, and this is a situation where, as you're aware, there is a movement in Las Cruces to rejuvenate and revive our downtown area and to restore its economic viability. And the bill simply asks the state to turn over the old J.C. Penney building, now known as the Communist building, to the city, so that the city could then turn around and lease that to the Downtown Las Cruces Partnership, which will use it to incubate various jobs that would promote the revitalization of our downtown area. I think it's just a great bill, and I think it's going to pass.
Sounds good. One bill, Representative, one of your colleagues, Zach Cook, recently proposed is concealed carry to be allowed at schools, college bars, state parks, and buses. With the recent incident in Tucson where a congresswoman was shot, does this bill have any concern among other lawmakers or you?
Well, I think the bill seeks to extend the rights of those who do or who are licensed to carry concealed weapons to carry those weapons into more locations. There is, of course, disagreement, and a lot of people are uneasy about the extension of those rights. I personally am comfortable with those who are certified to carry those weapons into institutions of higher learning, into state parks and recreational areas. I have no problem with that. I'm not on board with carrying those weapons, however, into establishments that serve liquor. I'm not on board with that part of it.
What do you think about those who feel that they would be uncomfortable if they're sitting in a classroom with someone carrying?
Well, Carlos, the point of carrying concealed is that no one knows that you're carrying concealed. And so we would understand that if someone walked into the classroom displaying a weapon, that would make people nervous and anxious. But part of the point of having a license to carry concealed is that it allows a person to have the type of self-protection that our Constitution guarantees without making people around them anxious or nervous. And we would also point out to you that several of the horrible events at our universities that we've witnessed recently in the last few years may have been minimized to a degree if there had been a young student there who carried concealed and had intervened.
Do you think that this bill will find a lot of support in the coming weeks?
Oh, you're asking me to predict the future. I'm not able to do that. I think that there will be those who speak strongly for it and those who will speak out strongly against it.
I was asking to take your crystal ball and predict the future.
Yeah, there will be discussion, and it'll be strong on both sides.
Tell us, for someone who may be watching or listening, tell us a little bit about your day as far as when you get in, what type of work. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have really long hours.
It begins, and I appreciate you asking that, Carlos. A lot of folks would be interested to know what we actually do. Let me kind of take you through my typical day. The first week of the session is mostly, there's a lot of ceremony involved in the first week. Not much happens because the introduction of legislation only gets started. In the second week, then, the introduced legislation begins to make its way to committees. And so my day looks like this. I get up about 6 o'clock, and that's pretty routine for me anyway. But the first thing I do is review again those bills that I'll be hearing in committee. I have two committees that I serve on, Agriculture and Water and the Health and Government Relations Committees. Both of those meet at 8:30 in the morning, and I spend a good hour reviewing the legislation that's going to be on the committee's agenda that morning. Soon after we finish in committee, which may last an hour and a half to 2 hours, our floor session begins. When we open the session on the floor, new legislation is introduced, and committee reviews are heard and approved, and then the third reading and final voting and debate on bills is heard. Then at the end of the floor session, I will typically, again, make sure that I've accumulated the legislation for the following day that I'll be considering in committee. I'll answer a lot of emails and even phone calls from constituents and try to get back in touch with all of them. As it is right now, I'll finish my day about 5 or 5:30 and go home, but the time of day that I finish is a little bit extended every day, and we expect that in the last month of the session, we'll be into the night before we're able to complete our work and go home.
Sounds like a lot of hard work and a long day. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Representative McMillan.
Carlos, good to be with you. Invite me back.
And that's all the time we have. Thanks for watching, and remember that you can see Your Legislators online at krwg.org. I'm Carlos Craig. We'll talk to you next time.
Your Legislators is a production of KRWG Broadcasting. Copyright New Mexico State University Board of Regents.